It is 6:30, so I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'll note for the record that all members of council are present and accounted for except for Councilman Binder. He will not be joining us this evening. And if you will, if you're able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. So the first part of our agenda this evening is the consent agenda. And the consent agenda consists of 3 items. First will be the council meeting minutes from the meeting of March 15th, 2021. Second item will be financial management report for the month ending February 28th, 2021. And then we have 3 alcoholic beverage license applications. One is PH-21-AB-09 Chartwell Hospitality LLC, DBA Hilton Alpharetta, Atlanta on Windward Parkway. Second is PH-21-AB-10 HEG LLC, DBA Fairway Social, 240 South Main Street, Alpharetta, Georgia. And the third being PH-21-AB-11 SJIJ LLC, DBA All Time Wine and Spirits on Windward Parkway. Is there anyone on council who would like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Councilman Burnett, second by Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favor of the consent agenda, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. Councilman Heights. And it does pass unanimously. So that'll wrap up the consent agenda for this evening, and we'll move on to the public hearing items. I will note for the record that one of the public hearing items that was advertised and on the agenda for this evening, it will not be heard. That was the PH-21-05 UDC text amendments for the backyard chickens. So if you were here for the backyard chickens, it will not be heard tonight. It's been withdrawn by staff and will neither be heard or discussed this evening. The other 2 items on the agenda will be heard, and the first of those will be PH-21-04 TPA Group 360 Tech Village Change of Condition. Ms. Cook, I believe you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The first item, the map is shown to you on the screen.
A little fuzzy.
There we go. There we go. The applicant, TPA Group, is requesting a change to previous conditions of zoning on a little over 62 acres. It's property that was approved for a mixed-use development. The change would move the Alpha Loop from along the south side of the boulevard to the Georgia 400 buffer. The property is located at the southwest corner of Haynesbridge Road and Lakeview Parkway, and I have the site plan that was approved at that time. This was actually approved in 2019. So the master plan that was approved, it actually dictated and conditioned that the Alpha Loop would be down the internal street. And just to show you the concept, this is actually the retail and the apartments that are located here along the Alpha Loop. They had the townhomes that were also located along the Alpha Loop, and the blue is the office, and then they had the mixed retail at the front. So at that time, we had actually conditioned that they have that 12-foot trail through the middle of the site. And back in 2019, we actually went through a trail alignment study. That was something that was part of the Atlanta Regional Commission they had given us a grant to look at the connection over to North Point. At that time, it was actually with the input from residents, as well as looking at the walkability, as well as the grades through that area. It was determined that the Alpha Loop should be moved along the Georgia 400 buffer. So that plan was adopted in November of last year, and it showed that along Georgia 400. Because of that adoption, there is a condition of zoning that needs to be considered to be changed for the TPA group, removing the requirement for the Alpha Loop in the center of the project, and then, of course, we would give impact fee credits for that Alpha Loop. They still plan to have a 10-foot sidewalk that will be located down the center of the project, and they have about an 8-foot planting area, so there'll still be access down the middle of that project, internal to the project. Also, as part of their construction, they will be building the section of the loop that comes across Morrison Parkway. They have a requirement for the crosswalk. They also have a requirement to build the Alpha Loop that comes into the lake, as well as the public portion that goes around the lake. So until this is actually constructed at some time in the future by the city, there is the possibility to use this 10-foot sidewalk as well as to access the Alpha Loop. The applicant did notify surrounding property owners. The report that they provided states that they didn't receive any comments. We are recommending approval of the request, and the condition would read as follows. Replacing condition 37 to say developer shall dedicate a minimum 20-foot permanent easement and any necessary construction easements through the Georgia 400 buffer for the purpose of a future Alpha Loop trail alignment. In addition, developer shall dedicate a permanent easement and construct a 12-foot concrete path around the lake and connecting to Morrison Parkway. Final alignment design materials approved by staff and construction completed prior to the first residential certificate of occupancy. An enhanced crosswalk shall be provided across Morrison Parkway at the existing signalized intersection at Lakeview Parkway and shall be constructed of material approved by staff. Trail entrance gateways arches shall be provided on Morrison Parkway and Lakeview Parkway and shall count towards the original sculpture's requirement. Alpha Loop shall include seating, gathering areas, lighting, landscape, hardscape, and a bike station per applicant's letter of intent. Alpha Loop shall be promoted to the public by providing parking, access, and multi-use trails for public enjoyment. Wayfinding signage shall be placed at key locations along the Alpha Loop. Alpha Loop improvements shall be eligible for impact fee credits as approved by staff. And Alpha Loop shall maintain a minimum 10-foot setback from all buildings. And I forgot to mention that one. That is a change also. The original condition required a 20-foot setback. And if you look at the original plan that was submitted and approved, they always had this pinch point right here by the parking deck. And their review of what included buildings, they were looking at true buildings. So they didn't know that they would have to meet this requirement of the 20-foot away from the parking deck. So they are requesting that that be reduced to 10 feet. And I just confirmed with Crawford, and he said that pinch point is actually 15 feet away. So 15 feet would be, they would still meet the requirements with a 15-foot. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Do we have any questions from council? Councilman Hypes?
Do you know whether on that pinch point there could be some sort of landscaping or something so that it's not just Alpha Loop and buildings side by side? Is there enough room to screen it?
There is. There actually is. So they have some landscaping here. This is what they had submitted to Design Review Board. So here at that pinch point, they have landscaping along that side. And one of our concerns, too, when we were requiring the 20-foot, one reason, of course, was so we can get landscaping, so there'd be a good experience. But also, we had had some concerns for the townhomes when it was located along the front. We didn't want the Alpha Loop to be so close to the front porches. That was a lot of our concern is in this area.
Any other questions from council at this time? Thank you, Ms. Cook. Would the applicant like to come forward at this time?
Everybody, council members, thank you for taking the time. If you have any questions about this condition, I'd love to answer.
Do we have any questions for the applicant on this item? Great presentation. We have no.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember.
Ms. Cobb, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone would like to come forward, discuss this matter, now's your opportunity to do so. Seeing no one, will close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll offer a motion to approve PH-21-04 TPA Group /360 Tech Village, change to condition of zoning as the condition was read by Ms. Cook.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Motion by Councilwoman Richards and a second by Councilmember Burnett. Any discussion? I'll just say that I'm actually excited to see this because I wasn't real excited about having it run down the middle of the development in the first place. So I think this is an improvement for the project and for the community, and I appreciate you bringing this forward. That being said, the motion was to approve PH-21-04 TPA Group 360 Tech Village change of condition as read by staff. All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Congratulations. So the next item up in public hearing this evening is PH-21-03 UDC text amendments prerequisites for public hearing requests. Director Cook, you have the floor again.
Thank you. This is consideration of text amendments to the UDC Article 4 procedures to add regulations requiring that all taxes be paid in full and all outstanding code violations on a property be rectified prior to a request for a public hearing. This was something that was always on our applications. It's just getting it within the code. And this item was considered at the Planning Commission meeting, and they did recommend unanimously to approve the change to the code. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Do we have any questions for staff at this time? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Cook. Mr. Thomas, do you mind doing your duty?
An ordinance to amend Article 4, Section 4.2.1 of the Unified Development Code to add a new paragraph D pertaining to the initiation and review of applications for land use changes to provide for an effective date to repeal conflicting ordinances and for other purposes.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Cobb, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this matter, now's your chance to do so. Seeing no one, will close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council approve the UDC text amendments prerequisites for a public hearing request as read by City Attorney Sam Thomas.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hypes, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell. Any discussion? Councilman Hypes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a situation about 3 months ago where somebody came before us and they were not in compliance, and this matter came up. And I really want to thank Mr. Drinkard and Sam Thomas and staff for really taking the initiative to spot the issue, draft the ordinance, and have it addressed so that it's in our code. So they acted on it immediately, and it's come before us in a very short time, and I appreciate that.
Any other comments from council? The motion was to approve PH-21-03 UDC text amendments prerequisite for public hearing requests as read by City Attorney Sam Thomas. All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. And it does pass unanimously. So that will wrap up the public hearing items for this evening. And we'll move on to old business, and the first item on the old business is consideration to amend the noise ordinance. This is second reading.
at the prior meeting, and I just report that there's been no changes. And, but if there's any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Are there any questions for City Attorney Sam Thomas? Sam, I believe you've answered all our questions
All
at
right,
this
well,
point.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So this is the second reading, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend Chapter 26, Article 5 of the Code of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, the noise ordinance, so as to eliminate an exemption applicable to certain construction activities, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting ordinances, and for other purposes.
Thank you, sir. And it is the second reading. There's been no changes, so there's no public comment at this time. Do I have a motion, council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we approve this as read by Sam Thomas.
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell, second by Councilman Richard, and that was to approve the consideration to amend the noise ordinance, second reading as read by City Attorney Sam Thomas. Any discussion at this time?
Mr. Mayor, may I offer a friendly amendment to change the 10-day clause to 14 so that it doesn't end on a weekend?
I'll accept that.
Councilman Richard?
I will as well. Thank you.
And just so I can understand, this is changing which deadline?
There is a provision in the ordinance that said that the staff and council could authorize a 10-day exception, and I didn't want the exception to expire on a weekend so that they couldn't be responded to. This allows them to be responded to. If you apply for the permit on a Tuesday, you can renew it on a Tuesday instead of applying for it on a Wednesday and it expiring on a Saturday to which no one can be reached.
Okay, so we're all clear on that then? Thank you for clarifying. So the motion now is to approve the consideration to amend the noise ordinance with that change of the deadline being 14 days rather than 10 days. All those in favor, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. And it does pass 5-1. So that'll wrap up the old business of tonight's meeting, and new business begins, and that'll start off with ITB 21-006 Fire Station Renovations. Director Sasevich, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is the fire station renovations project that it was part of the FY21 capital list. And what we're going to be doing is stations 81, 83, and 85. 81 is going to get some upgrades to the bathroom. 83 will also get some updating to the day room and new floors. And 85 is going to get an update to the bathroom and the bunkhouse with new flooring in the kitchen as well. We received only 3 bids for this project. Actually had to extend the bid another 2 weeks to get additional bids. But the low bidder of Harmon Solutions LLC came in at $158,641, with just a few $1,000s over our budget. Working with finance, we were able to find additional funds and accounts through public safety as well as public works to make this happen. It is a 180-day schedule project, primarily because you cannot go on to station 83 until 81's finished. So we're going to do a station at a time. So we'll prolong the duration, but it'll make things more convenient for the firefighters. So, answer any questions if there are any.
Do we have any questions for staff on this item? Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Ms. Cobb, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone would like to come forward and speak on the fire station renovations, now is your opportunity to do so. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we please award ITB 21-006 Fire Station Renovations in an amount not to exceed $158,641 and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell, second by Councilman Hypes, and that was to award the contract for the fire station renovations at stations 81, 83, and 85 to Harmon Solutions in an amount not to exceed $158,641, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents. Any discussion from council? Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell.
These renovations have been a long time coming, so I'm glad we're finally able to address these needs within the fire stations and for our firefighters out there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, sir. All those in favor of the motion to approve item 21-006 fire station renovations, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Thank you, Pete. We appreciate it. The next item, City Administrator Bob Regas will be presenting, and that is for the public safety vehicle replacements.
Mayor and Council, good evening. In the current year budget, y'all approved 8 vehicles and 2 motorcycles for public safety. So far, 4 vehicles have been purchased. This item before you tonight is for the other 4 vehicles and the 2 motorcycles. We recommend 3 Ford F-150s in the amount of $1,900, 1 Dodge Durango in the amount of $34,554, and then 2 Harley-Davidson motorcycles in the amount of $51,992.80. And also, we're requesting $60,000 to upfit those vehicles with all the emergency equipment. Interesting, on the F-150s, we bid all these, of course. These are the low bids on all these. And on the F-150s, they actually beat the state contract. So that does happen, and it's good to test it.
Actually, a little surprise given the market for pickup trucks lately.
Yes, sir.
It's great news.
Yeah.
Any questions? Councilman Merkel.
Director, I noticed the Dodge in there. Is there a move to another brand from the traditional Ford that we've been using?
Yeah, we're trying that out too because of the annual increase in prices of the Ford. We're going to check one out to see if it's comparable and if it's just as good, and move to those. Yeah.
Okay.
The Durango's an SUV, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we currently get the Explorers, and this would be a comparable, and it's a pursuit vehicle, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not a replacement for an F-150, it's a replacement for the Ford
Correct.
Explorers. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions from council on that? Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Ms. Cobb, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone wants to come forward and speak on the acquisition of the public safety vehicles, now's your chance to do so. Seeing no one, will close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council approve appropriation for 4 vehicles and 2 motorcycles for public safety for an amount not to exceed $248,446.80, also including up to $60,000 for cost to upfit emergency equipment.
I have a motion by Councilman Hypes and a second by Councilman Merkel. And that was for the acquisition of the public safety vehicle replacements, 4 vehicles and 2 motorcycles, totaling an amount not to exceed $248,446.80, including the upfitting. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Third item will be the Alpharetta wedding venues item, and Director Rogers, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate being here tonight. And if you hear a little raspiness is my voice, it has to do with the pollen. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And if you haven't been affected by pollen yet, you will be. As you get a little bit older, it just gets worse every year. So
You are not alone in the room.
so for some of you younger guys, you have a lot to look forward to. I'm here to talk about the wedding venues. Again, we have now narrowed our wedding venue discussion to 3 locations, and that being Mansell House, Art Center, and the formal gardens here at City Hall. Now, in your packet, there was a lot of slides, so with the help of my good friend, Mr. Drinker, we're going to move through these very rapidly. But I do want to touch on a couple of things before we do that. Is that I did get some assistance on putting this project together from Matt Mitchell Designs, and Matt with Matt Mitchell Design is here tonight. So if you have any questions, detailed questions, he'll answer those for us. And then tonight's presentation, we're going to show you the plan for the 3 areas, and this is the overall plan. We're not saying that we're going to do all of this at one time, but this is where we would want to go with them and the plan. So. So what we're looking for tonight is conceptual approval of the plan, and then some, phase 1 funding if we decide to move forward that. And then if it's approved, then we would develop the phasing. We would develop phasing for each of these 3 based on the funding that we got. So let's do Mansell House first, real quick. The general conditions. This is just showing you what it's like today. And then here's the things that we're going to want to do. Some porch improvements, some selective demolition, and then some landscaping improvements. The porch is pretty easy. It just needs a little TLC. Things like painting the top of the porch, the blue that was traditional for southern houses. And then as we move through it, we'd want to replace the existing fans, because the fans that are there now are not outdoor fans. We're not going to get the big, awesome fans. We're just going to get the traditional outdoor fans there and upgrade. We'd also like to replace the existing furniture, because right now the furniture doesn't match. It's just kind of a hodgepodge of rocking chairs and benches. And then replace the existing lights, because again, those are not, they're nice lights, but we think we can do a lot better. And then so we're just talking about a general cleanup there to the porch area. Then we move on to the next area. This is a staging inspiration. So we're not asking to do that. We're just saying if somebody has a wedding, this is what they could do to the porch. If the wedding planner wanted to come in and bring the furniture and created an area there, that's just for inspiration only. And then so we had some demolition that we are recommending, and that's the taking out of both of the gazebos eventually. The first one to go is on the bottom right-hand corner. That's one is just about ready to go anyway, so we'd take that one out. Then as we can show you what we're doing. We'll be back to that in a minute, but this is the overall landscaping plan for it. Okay. So the landscape improvements, right now this is what you see if you're in that bottom terraced area. So we want to plant some you can see the evergreens there. We want to screen that a little bit. We're not going to screen the noise. We're not going to do that, but just to give a visual screen from the baseball fields. A more aggressive maintenance plan, particularly on the lower part, some improved drainage, add and clean up the plantings, and then unify the sculpture program, because right now throughout Mansell House grounds, they're just different little sculptures that have been put there. Some of them have come from people's yards and have just been put on tree trunks and that kind of stuff. So we want to unify that a little bit. We want to just upgrade make sure that we're taking care of the hardwoods. We want to focus on the hardwoods that are on the property, make sure that we're maintaining good health for those, and we'll get to that in a minute. And we're going to do want to do some lighting from the trees. And again, these are the lightings, and the draping of the trees would be done by the wedding folks, not by us. And then, so let's go on to the next one. So we're talking about the seating area where one of them would come out, where when you were coming in it, you would feel like a welcoming place for you to for your folks to gather. Another example of that. And then where we want to add a cloister is down on the where the really ugly gazebo is. That's the only way I can explain it right now. Where the really ugly gazebo is, that's where we want to put a cloister. And again, we're not saying we're going to put that in this. We're just going to provide an area where you could bring that in and make that a nice area, because those things are all very portable nowadays, and you can rent those if you want to go that way. And then that's just another example. And then down on the lower end where it's a nice grass area, we're going to plant that. Then we would in the future see an arbor down there. And these are just examples of what could happen. And again, more examples. So now let's move on to the Art Center. And of course, everybody, I'd like to get through the presentation and then take questions if we could do that. The Art Center, again, the existing conditions are there. We're kind of calling two different areas where the Grove is going to be in the terrace. So as we're talking, that's the kind of two areas that we're talking about. Interior staging is already ready, so with the need for exterior power and then the need for exterior lighting and staging. And let me tell you, when we talk about staging, we're not talking about a hardcore stage. We're talking about the wedding venue folks staging the area with either lights or with drapery or something like that. So the inside, again, we'll just move rapidly through this because it just has lots of possibilities. And so those are all just examples of that. The exterior power, we would like that, and again, don't get, just because we have a lot of dots on there, doesn't mean we're going to put, a light pole and power there. We just know that we need power throughout that area there so that things can happen as they needed to be. And then going to the exterior lighting, we would like to see some exterior lighting to enhance that particular area, which would be, then we would do some uplighting of the trees as well in that area too, so it would all be in concert. And then again, the staging could come later with from the venues. And then we finally reach the formal gardens here at the City Hall complex. And again, this is an aerial view of that. These are some of the things that we're going to be talking about, but let's just go ahead and move through that. Go to the next one. One of the things that came up was that there isn't really a focal point. There are focal points, but they're at both ends, and the brides and the grooms would be standing on the pathway. So one of the ideas was to take the circular, both of those are half circles right now at both ends, and to create a full circle using the same pavers there. So that's a possibility. One of the other possibilities was to add gates at each of the 4 entrances there to create an entrance or a more of a place, not to keep people out, but to just create a more visual entrance into those. And again, we need power throughout, because right now there's only power on the far ends, and they're actually at the fountains. And lighting, again, is an issue. Well, these are possible, just landscaping, about just improving the overall area. And then lighting, and again, these are small lightings. We're not talking about street lights. We're just talking about low ground lighting so that we can improve it if that's the way we want to do. As you can see with these pictures here, not a lot of lighting, but just improved lighting. And then again, the staging of that area would be up to it, there's just all kind of possibilities there. And believe it or not, that was 65 slides. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have at this time. I know folks probably have questions, be glad to answer them. And I may call on Matt to help me if I get in trouble.
Councilwoman Richard.
Thank you, Mayor. Morgan, thank you. I know you and I spoke earlier today about some of the initial questions that I had. Okay, James is going back. Okay. So I'm trying to make sure I understand inspiration versus what we're going to be responsible for changing. So what we saw in the Mansell, all of that work that you talked about, the restoration, the removing of the gazebos, the hardwood care, all of that is represented in the 11.5?
Not all of it. again, that's the overall plan that we have that we want to get to, but no, we couldn't, I wish we could do all that. for
Okay,
11.5, but
that's-
we can't.
so can you give us-
What the 11.5 is gonna, and again, I don't have these hard figures, but what we're hoping to get out of that 11.5 would be the screening, because that's the most important thing. The the upgrade of the grounds itself, where the maintenance we needed, and then the removal of that one gazebo.
Okay, let's go back there. So
Okay.
can you take us through what the 11.5 is going to address?
Okay, so it would do the porch improvements, because those are nominal, okay? Then it would remove the ugliest of the gazebos.
One of the two? One of the two.
Smaller of the two.
Okay.
Okay, and then what we would do there then is just create a space where somebody could bring in an arbor or what's that other word?
Arbor and,
Cloister.
Oh.
I'm learning all these
Got it.
terms. I'm
Okay.
learning all these technical terms. That they could bring that into a nice area. And then the landscaping, improving the landscaping is what would happen out of that 11.5.
and including the screening of the new.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
The new
That's-
trees.
Really, the screening becomes the most important part for that lower lawn for folk, or, on a Saturday afternoon, folks aren't going to want to go down there unless there's some kind of screening between them and the ball field.
Okay, all right, that helps with that. So with,
And just so you know, that's a continuation of what we already have, because we've planted the magnolias particularly, and some other greenery, evergreens, and we're going to continue that same thing around. So it would be not something that's going to be foreign to it. It's going to be landscaping that is already there, just continuing that around.
okay. Can we move over to the Arts Center? Okay, so in the 25,000 for the Arts Center, interior staging, okay.
The interior staging, there's not anything.
The event folks are responsible for that. So is it it's strictly lighting and power for the 25?
It's lighting, power, and landscape upgrades.
Okay. And if we were to, all those dots, if we were to.
No, we're not going to do all those dots.
Okay, so 25K is half of those dots, or do we have any sense?
No, I just don't know.
Okay.
I just know that that was the amount that we've done for the landscaping. Again, it's more about the landscaping than it is about the power.
Mm-hmm.
There's power already there. It's just in the wrong location, so we're going to have.
It's not accessible.
We're going to have to move it to the right location.
Okay,
And we're not going to put power in the middle of there, because that would be that'd be taken away from what you could do with the space.
okay.
Just representation that we need power located throughout the area.
So can you back up to that other slide, James? So the yellow, the next one? The lighting.
You're talking with the lights?
It's that one. So am I looking at this properly? Are those like lighting strips along the steps there? Okay.
And that becomes a safety as well as
At night.
visual point.
Okay.
And just so there's no, and at one point in time, we had talked about putting fans out here and there. We're not doing that.
Yeah, we talked about that.
That was in
Those
these
fans are
figures,
gone,
but,
right? Okay.
It did not come up.
Okay. Just a few on the Brook Street Park, and then I'll be. As you and I spoke about, installing the gates in the 4 different entrances, I'm not a fan of that at all. I think that the park itself is public space. It needs to be welcoming, and if an event person needs to cordon off that area, they can figure out how to do that, as opposed to us having a permanent gate at all 4 of those locations. I'm not a fan of that. And the two, I guess, the fountain and the other location, we want to, can you talk a little bit more about what the recommendation is there?
It's all the way up at the top.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
So we want to, where we've got the gravel pathway,
Would be pavers, would be the same pavers that you can't really see one of these pictures, but around both of these fountains, there are brick pavers in a half semicircle. And so what we want to do is simply take that semicircle and make it a circle so that we create a space at both ends that becomes a focal point.
and so then we'll go from gravel to pavers and then gravel again
Yes,
on both ends?
yes, on both ends.
Okay.
Again, that's just, again, that might be something that if you want to talk deeper than that, I'd ask Matt to come up and talk about that visually, but that was one of the things that particularly Matt and the other members of our little in-house committee felt, not strongly, but they thought that would really enhance that area for this particular purpose.
I think I understand sort of how it would enhance it. I just see it perhaps as a challenge in regards to maintenance of knowing how the pavers are sometimes a challenge for us to maintain over time, and the fact that it changes the surface, and we've got, folks and kids riding bikes and things through there, that might be a little bit of a challenge. My last question is, in regards to specifically, I guess, Brook Street Park and the Arts Center, have we thought about how frequently or how available these spaces would be to events? I'm thinking about the garden here. Summertime, it's very popular amongst our residents. Weekends, it's very popular, which is also when weddings are held and that type of thing. So have we talked about these would be available 50% of the time or 100% of the time?
No, we have not. We have not talked about if there was any kind of limit or, we've talked about the fact that we probably need to do that, but we have not.
We haven't gotten there yet?
Addressed that yet.
Okay.
I think it would probably be, the one that we'd have to do it first is basically here at City Hall because of the business during the day, and we'd have that. I think the Arts Center is going to, the schedule itself is gonna take away, because if we're already having an event at the Arts Center, then obviously you can't rent it. So I think that might take care of itself. And then the Mansell House, they want to, the Historical Society that rents it would want to rent it as often as they could, and we're okay with that. Mm-hmm. That just really becomes a scheduling issue between the Historical Society and the Baseball Association, and it's not so much a scheduling problem as it is a parking problem.
Right, I see that. Okay. Thank you, Morgan. I'm good.
Councilman Hypes, did you have a comment?
So I've been following this item with interest since the workshop, and I understood that one of the early motivations was to get heads in beds in hotels by us having an enhanced presence as a wedding venue, us being Alpharetta, and we've narrowed multiple venues down to 3 venues in order to accomplish getting people into hotels from 3, now down to 3 venues. So looking at it in terms of the project accomplishing one of its intended goals, when you put in $44,000 for these improvements, does that get these 3 venues to the point where we've reached the final point, they're Alpharetta wedding venue ready, or is there more work to be done, more dollars to be spent?
Well, I would answer that 44,000 would get us to the point where the Convention and Visitors Bureau could go and market those 3 locations as wedding venues. I think it's not going to get us to where we're at here, but if the numbers indicate that there is a need for that, then we'll come back and ask for more money to get it to that. So this is just an initial investment, basically to see if it's going to give us the results that we're asking for.
And actually, that was an answer to part of my question that I'm most interested in, because you said that doesn't encompass everything that's in here, and you sort of circled your iPad over there. Some of the things that we're seeing in these slides are not encompassed in the 44,000. That's beyond that, correct? So we may spend $44,000, but then to take it to the next level, there's a certain amount of additional money that we don't know of right now that we may be asked to appropriate at a later time.
Correct.
Do you have a ballpark within 10,000 to 100,000 of what that may be?
You know, you always hesitate to give a figure because even if you say, well, this is just a guess, it becomes the landmark. But I would think that we would be halfway there as far as the money goes. That's just, again, don't hold me to that, but I think we'd be about halfway there.
Okay. I can understand being in the event business for the sake of being in the event business, where I can understand being a wedding venue destination to get heads and beds. And to me, there's two different analyses, and both of those analyses factor in how much money do we have to spend to get there so that we can evaluate whether we believe as a council member there's a return on investment. But for right now, you don't know what that additional amount may be.
No.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan, and Mr. Mayor. I'll hurry through with this. The formal garden, that was deliberately done in an elongated quadrifoil design, and I think the pavers going around that pathway, as you're looking down from the arbor, it's going to interfere with that whole design. That garden was designed by Jean Aldi, a notable landscape architect here in Georgia for years. She's retired now, but I would hate to mess up that design just to put in pavers for occasional brides and grooms when they could stand there as it is anyway. I'd rather see the money put on enhancements like flowering, plants and things like that will further enhance, because it's a beautiful garden. And I agree with Councilman Richard about the gates. I think it needs to be an open thing for most of the public where they can, the right gate would be gorgeous, but with that amount of money, we will not get the right kind of gate that's made out of cedar and properly designed for the garden. And she thought it was fine to just leave it open for the public, and I'd hate to interfere with that. On the Art Center, I'm glad to see that the decision was made to not put fans. I can agree with everything there. I think it's needed enhancements on the Art Center. And the Mansell House, I agree, those arbors and gazebos, they've seen their day, and the hodgepodge mix on the front porch needs to be cleaned up as well. And also, I hope there we can also put some more flowering trees and vines and stuff. But the garden club does a lot over there anyway, and I know that they just enhanced one of the gardens. So, and I'm glad to see there's not a permanent wall going up at the Art Center that, just, I think to do it well, it would take a lot more money than what we're talking.
Yes.
But, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. My first question is on the Arts Center. If we compared what city code is for an event facility like that and the number of parking spaces required?
I have not.
Because I've been to a couple events over there. I mean, between staff and the early arrivals, there's no parking left. So I don't know how we address parking over there. I don't even know where the closest alternative other than the school or.
So we do have a reciprocal agreement with the school. Anytime that they're not in session, we can use their parking. Anytime that they have an emergency, they can use our parking. So
okay.
We have that's in writing. So we have a reciprocal agreement with the school for additional parking.
Okay. All right. Now it comes down to showing the space. Are we going to have a staff member that's going to have to go out to each venue and answer questions from the bride's parents and then do a second go around with the groom's parents and then come back and want to renegotiate what part they get to use? Is that on us?
That would be on us, yes. And so at the Mansell House, that would be on the Historical Society.
Understood.
Okay,
but
so
these two
at
here.
the Art Center, that would fall on the Art Center staff that is there. And here at City Hall, we're planning on using the staff that's here, to show that.
And then having recently, as both Saturday and Sunday walked, well, no, we didn't do Sunday, but Saturday, 11:30 in the morning, 12 o'clock. I mean, this place was just crazy with people. It was awesome. The thought of cutting through that garden, which we do on the side, it's not easy access to load in and load out. They've got to come in at the library, and if they're hauling chairs and everything in, I'm pretty sure somebody's going to look at that sidewalk and say, you know what, let's just drive up there. And there's nobody here on a Saturday to oversee them except the wedding planner, who is not vested in the city, and that's, in general, would be my guess. You know, they're beholding to the person writing them a check. So they're out to get them everything they can. And that's going to be, oh, can you just leave that side door open so that the bride can get ready in that room? Turns into the building's unsecure on a weekend, and we have staff members that come in and work on a weekend. So I got great concerns with this, I'm afraid, as to what it's going to cost the city. I'm not even worried about the $40,000, because I think those improvements could be done anyways and make the properties better, whether we do a single wedding or not. So to me, that's got great potential to, especially the lighting at the Arts Center, the landscaping definitely at the Mansell House. But I'm worried about somebody renting this space in this park right here, and they're going to walk in here Saturday like they own it. They paid for it. My baby's getting married. I'm going to do what I need to do. What shape is the place left in when they leave? Who's responsible? Where's the deposit? I haven't had a wedding yet like Councilman Hypes has here, but I've got two girls, and all those questions seem to get asked when they start talking about that stuff. So I got some concerns with it, I'm afraid. Do you want to address any of those out here? I mean, I guess the question is, who's going to be responsible for overseeing when a large truck delivering chairs wants to drive right through Brook Street Park?
Okay, so it would be our plan to have the rental fee cover to having a staff person here during the rental, just like at the Art Center. If they're using the Art Center, we're going to build in a part-time, to have a part-time staff member there that would oversee it, that would watch our asset, because we can't give them the key to City Hall and say, here,
right,
you know, good luck. So that would be built into the cost of it, is to cover that staff.
So then they're going to say, well, if you got a staff member, she can open the door, right?
Right.
But we don't want them in here. I mean, are we going to turn the bridal suite in here at the
Is a community room.
community rooms?
Uh-huh.
That's the plan?
That's the plan right now, that they would be able to use the community room as the bride room.
And what about restrooms for the guests?
They would be outside, underneath.
Okay.
That's the plan right now. No, the plan is not to open City Hall.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Richard.
Just following along those lines of questions, I thought at one point we talked about one of the reasons that the formal garden was considered was the backup in case of rain, that there would be access here, internal. No? No?
I think that was said at one point in time. It was never my intention to rent City Hall as for part of that plan. Now, raining cats and dogs, and we have a staff member here, and the bride and groom wants to stand in the community room with the preacher and the parents. I don't know about that. I mean, I think we would probably give that, but we're not. The intention is not to do that, and that's one of those things that, you know, we got to make sure that everybody understands, is that you know, here's our intentions, but in the real world, we're gonna try to work with people to make things happen as best for everybody. So I don't want to say no, we'd never do that, because
And I would say,
might have to.
I mean, anybody who's planning an outdoor event always needs a backup in case of rain. So I think we would be.
But it's going to be our intentions, not, when we're talking to them, is to tell them this is an outdoor event. You have no backups. Just like at the Art Center. If you rent this facility and we have an art show or an art display in the gallery, there is no moving the artwork to come inside. You're rolling the dice.
Okay, so you're saying contractually there is no weather backup.
No.
It's umbrellas or nothing.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
But they could rent a tent. I mean,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Could rent a big tent if they had to at the last minute, and we can work. We know where the sprinklers are. We know where where.
Yeah, we need to make sure those are turned off.
Yeah, we know, make sure they're turned off, but we also know how a big tent can go up.
Right. Any other questions from council? Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Would you like to have your experts discuss anything?
Yeah.
Well, if you have anything to add about your thoughts on the matter?
Mayor and Council, thank you. I'm Matt Mitchell Design. I think the biggest, really the only point I want to make is this was not intended to be a design. This was a conceptual package to say what it could be, pointing the direction mostly, as Councilman Merkel pointed out, a lot of this stuff is really good for the city as a whole anyway. The landscape, the lighting, the power, a lot of it will just add full-time to already the amenities we have. And so then a large portion of it is the staging as well. You know, a lot of you questioned what an inspiration image was. It's what it could look like. And those, of course, combine the infrastructure with the staging that would be part of whatever the wedding planner or the event people did.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Cobb, do we have any public comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
But if anyone wants to come forward, now is your opportunity to do so.
Ruth Ann Tate on Pebble Trail. My question is, are we talking about working on one and then number two and then number three? Or are we working on all three simultaneously?
The question was, are we intending to do these in three separate projects sequentially or to do them all together? I think the intent is to do them all at the same time,
Okay,
assuming that we have the designs and we have the funds and everything.
okay.
At least the first stage of each of the three. If there's anyone else that would like to come forward and speak on this item, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion to table this.
Second.
I have a motion to table. There can be no discussion. All those in favor of tabling the motion, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. And it does pass unanimously. The item is tabled for the time being. So that will wrap up the new business portion of tonight's meeting. So now if there's anyone here that would like to make a public comment and you haven't had your chance to do so.
I do have one public comment card, Mayor Gilpin.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. If that person would like to come forward.
Teresa Harden, 180 Burnett Way, Alpharetta.
Hi, I'm Teresa Harden, and I live at 180 Burnett Way. I moved to Alpharetta in 1977. I live next to Old Marietta Street, which is now Old Milton Parkway. Last Tuesday, on my way home from Publix, I went by and I saw where the property on Old Milton between Wills Lane and Burnett Way is for sale. When Mayor Jimmy Phillips was mayor and they purchased the 10 houses up and down Marietta Street, they promised that the property there on Old Milton was going to be a buffer. It was not to be developed, it was not to be sold, it was to be left alone. And now I find this out, and I'm living there, and I'm very heart-sickened, and I'm upset, and I'm disappointed in the city. I have not heard of any public hearing or anything about it. What are y'all doing? What's going on? Can we stop it? I would most likely like the last two pieces of property on the end not to be sold because it's right next to my property. And like I said, I've been there since '77. So,
Okay. Thank you for your comments. This isn't really a discussion right now. I'll be glad to talk to you offline, and I'll answer your questions.
well, when did y'all do the public hearing on it? Did you do one?
Like I said, this isn't a back and forth discussion right now. This is a public comment.
Okay.
So if you've got other questions, feel free to ask those questions now. I'll be glad to talk to you after the meeting, and I'll be glad to address the questions you've raised to this point
Okay,
right
well,
now.
I am truly disappointed in the city for doing this without my knowledge. And like I said, I've been here since '77, and I helped build the playground at Wills Park, Wacky World. My name's on the plaque. I was a Boy Scout leader for 12 years, so I've been part of this community a long time. So thank you, and I did leave my email address. So I do hope to hear from you. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for coming up and speaking tonight. That's the first I've heard of that. I will ask City Attorney Sam Thomas to please research any entitlements or any promises that may have been made. We've, in my time on this council, investigated the sale of those properties at least one previous time and did go through a public process on that and never sold that property at that time. Anything to add, Sam?
I guess, there we go. I'll have to double check that. I know that some of those properties that we did dispose of, we did it through the required publication process, but I'll check on this particular piece of property and report back to you on that.
Right, and see if there are any promises or commitments
I
that.
don't recall any.
Do you remember the
conditions?
acquisition of this? Were you city attorney when it was
I think
acquired?
I was barely the city attorney when that happened, but
Okay.
it's been a while.
Right, well, we certainly want to find out.
Yeah, I will definitely find out for you and get the history on that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And to answer your other questions, the city has at various times since I've been on council investigated the sale of properties that we really have no use for. We've sold a couple of those, and we went through the process recently to do that again. There's been no sale. We'll actually be talking about some of these in executive session this evening. We have received some bids on some of those properties, and so I appreciate your comment. There's been no sale yet, but I think it's in the best interest of us as trustees of the funds that we receive from taxpayers when prices of land are valuable and we're not using those properties and have no intention of doing so. I think it makes sense to find out what the market will do. And I understand that if you don't like that, then you certainly have every right to speak up and voice your opposition to doing that. At this time, no decision's been made. And once we've had a discussion about the real estate and the offers that have been made, then I'll be glad to have a discussion with you as well. Hopefully, I think that addresses all the questions that you've got, but I'll be glad to talk to you more at some point in the future. Like I said, we haven't sold them yet, but with land being as valuable as it is, and with so many properties around the city that people would like to acquire for the Alpha Loop or for other park spaces that could be utilized, it makes sense to see what the market will bear and what the demand is at this point. So that's where we are on the process. I appreciate you leaving your information so that we can contact you. You're welcome. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? You have your opportunity right now. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do we have any reports this evening? Councilwoman Richard.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to mention our CZIM meeting for April will be Wednesday the 14th at 6 p.m. We've been conducting our CZIMs in a Zoom virtual fashion, and it's been working extremely well. And we'll have 5 applications on the 14th. Thank you.
Councilman Burnett.
I would like to thank Tom Harris for helping to defeat House Bill 328, which was with regard to cutting the city's franchise fees in an effort to pretend to invest in rural broadband. And he and I are undefeated in House bills that deal with telecom issues in the city of Alpharetta in their first year that they come up. We struggle a little bit the second, but we are undefeated in the first. So I want to give credit where credit is due because he did a masterful job.
Any other reports from council? Mr. Regas, you have the floor.
And Council, just a reminder that we'll be talking about a bond issue for parks in the next couple of council meetings in the workshop, as well as T-SPOS list, which could lead to ballot referendums in November. Hopefully, we then do public hearings in a May time frame, and then we approve ordinances if y'all want to put those on the ballot in a June and July time frame. So you'll be seeing them coming back up.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Regas on his report? Councilman Burnett.
Sir, is T-SPOS done around the same time? Does it need to be finalized in that June timeframe as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from council? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that'll wrap up tonight's meeting. Unfortunately, I must ask that we have a motion to adjourn into executive session.
Motion to adjourn into executive session, Mr. Mayor.
Have a motion by Councilman Merkel. Was that a second, Councilman Hypes? So we have a motion and a second to adjourn into executive session. All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote no. And it does pass unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will look forward to seeing you next time.